Welcome to this little tutorial for the Science Untangled setting app. I did one of these a while ago, but since then quite a few things have changed in the app, not the functions of it and so on, but the range of filters and so on. So I thought it was worthwhile doing another version of it. So let's get right into it straight away. First thing is, once you are registered with Science Untangled, you have your own account and you will have your own data set, and that's the one that you can choose there at the beginning. And the data set will allow you to choose any team from within that data set. I will choose what was my team at the time and my number one setter. Now we come to the first of the options. So right away we have an output of every set from Mikhail Mazny in that season, so we can see that straight away. 2,991 sets that it was, but that information obviously by itself is not very useful. So we start with a little bit of information about how to organize our files. So the Science Untangled apps work with very simple data volley files. You don't need any extras, you don't need any custom codes, but what you do need is the most accurate data, the most accurate files, of course, and it works best when you include every action. So every first contact, every second contact, every attack, obviously. For the second level of analysis, we should, and this is what I personally recommend, is to record the precise setter position every time using the animation tool in Data Volley. But you can manage, here you can see zones being the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, subzones A, B, C, D, or coordinates, which are the exact position, and that is where I choose my my files. The heat map we have by the attacker zone, so that's the simple part. Where the receiver is standing, you can make that as detailed as you would like, but all of my files have just zones, and we can choose what's in our heat map. So normally we choose obviously the percentage of sets, which is the distribution. We can also choose kills, so we see the most kills coming from the beginning, the middle of the court. Point win is if you win the rally, and so on and so forth. So we stick with our distribution. We'll add right now that this works with any data volley compatible file. So volumetrics files will function, of course. Volley station files will function. So you don't need exactly data volley files, but any DVW file. Filters. So now this is our first level of filters. Reception transition, we have a variety of options here. If you include F equals free ball, then you can choose just free balls, for example. And a reminder that you don't need to have any custom codes, any special setter codes. You can use just this normal straightforward codes. We will stick with reception. We don't need to differentiate breakpoint side out. Here we have our standard pass or first contact quality. So we will do the standard stuff here. Set number, we don't need to get into, but we can do all first, second, third sets. Here we can really get down into very detailed analysis of points. So the higher of two teams and the differential. So we can be very precise, getting down into some scoring tendencies. The type of serve, jump serve, float serve. The serve run position, This is what a lot of people use custom codes for saying which serve number in the series it was. We can have that just simply here. The setter call, and I only use the basic setter calls, 1, 2, 7, and no first tempo. There's a few odd codes there, but with these apps where you can where the app itself does most of the sort or all of the sorting, you don't need any special things for after reception, after free ball, any of those kinds of things. Setter position, obvious. Here we can choose which players receive, which individual players receive, whether the passer was in the front row or the back row. You can choose the players on the court. First player, either combinations of 2, 3, 4, 5. You don't need 6 because the setter's already there. Who is in the front row? If you want to, for example, choose a 1 spiker and 1 middle blocker, what the difference is there, and for whether or not, for example, a setter plays over the top of the 7 or with 1 middle but not over the top of the 7 with a different middle. Who is in the back row, which can help you obviously when who is going to hit the pipe, but also if teams use a receiver in different positions, for example close to the setter or away from the setter. Here we get into interesting ones. What happens after a substitution or a timeout or a technical timeout, if your league is using technical timeouts. By opponent, so for example in this tour season we actually played 6 or 7 matches against Kenjejan Kozla, so we had 218 of situations of good reception. Where is the opposing setter, especially if you have a short setter and you want to find out if one setter attacks an opponent's short setter, and we can see that probably he does, but you want to include some further analysis probably. Which opponents are in the front row, and although up here we had very detailed analysis of score and score differential, here we can do a really simple crunch time or not crunch time, which is the just after 18 or before 18 with a difference of, or crunch time is after 18 with a difference of 2. So that's our basic first level of filter, and then we have a second level of filter which is basically all of the same things. So breakpoint, side out, which we aren't interested in here, substitution, technical timeout. We can choose individual match analysis, opposition setter position, pass quality, so we can differentiate between perfect reception and positive reception. We can have whether the receiver was front row or back row, and whether the libero received. And we can see some small differences here in each of those situations. And note that the color coding is of course visual aid. The score, so score will break it down into 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 16 to 20, so on and so forth. And we can keep going. Serve type, where the serve comes from, which is the setter. We only chose one setter here, but we could have had both from in our beginning. Setter call, here we have when the call is 1, when the call is 2, and when the call is 7. And this was, I'm not even sure what that is, probably a mistake. And that is about all. So that's the first level of filters, second level of filters, and we can have any combination that we want. And the beauty of this app is the speed in which you can have you can break things down. So we can just make up some analysis. We only want the first and second set. We only want float serve, the first serve in a run, only when the setter call is 1, only when the setter is in the back row, only when the receiver is Alex Ferreira, and when he is in the front row. And we are down to 12 possibilities there. When the opposite was Bocek, and after a timeout, and we are already down to 0. That never happened in the course of the whole season. So let's go away from the timeout. Let's go away from defining the other player. Let's look at when the opposing setter was in the front row. Happened only a couple of times in this particular combination of plays. So that's not very interesting. Perhaps it's interesting to know some crunch time. No, this never happened in crunch time. Perhaps when Ferreira is receiving, gives us not enough information. So we don't have too much information there. And so we can quickly add and delete any possible things that we can think about. The other thing that we can do, let's take away our sets here, but let's keep it at the first in a run. Still K1, still setter in the back row. And now let's look at our rotation, setter position. And now we will have 6 courts, but 3 of those courts are with the setter in the front row. So that is a breakdown, and we can add more and more breakdowns here, depending on what we want to do. I think my record for number of courts in one analysis might be 20. Here we have 12. So here on this side, crunch time is true, and a lot of pipes in crunch time when the setter is in position 1. And let's go crunch time and after a timeout. A lot more balls back than front, and so on and so forth. We can really have, I want to say, an infinite number of combinations, but it's a very large number. And what always gets me is the speed with which I can do any analysis, the speed with which I can think of things, find out an answer, go on to the next thing, and just keep going like that. We mentioned, so that's the basic analysis. We'll get rid of some of these. Let's do our rotation so that we have a few more data points. Let's get rid of this. Just make it pretty simple. So here it takes it can take a few seconds to sort through everything, which is much faster than any analysis you can do in any other program that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with all of them at this point. So we have our basic rotations here, our side out, our basic distribution. I mentioned at the beginning that if we include the setter position, then the exact setter position coordinates, which are these gray points that we can see here, then we can sort also using the setter position, which for me is just about the most important analysis. So we have here clicked setter position, and with the mouse I can make a area. I can define an area where the setter was and work out the distribution from that position on the court. I can make that area as small as I would like. I can define perfect as perfect, and so on and so forth. And the analysis is here by rotation and by the position. I can clear that and start again, and then choose the receiver's position. And here, if we go back to the beginning, I define the receiver position just by zones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if I want to choose, for example, zone 1 and 9, I can do it like that. And now we have from the setter position, or from the receiver position, I can combine the two. I've just changed this down the bottom. I have not taken away the receiver position, but now I can add a setter and receiver reception from position 1, and the setter shifted towards 4 is not something that happened very often. And when it did, the ball went, let's put it all on one court because it didn't happen very often. So the setter set the short distance, which is pretty much what you would expect. And so that, in a nutshell, is the volleyball setting app from the Science Untangled. And I cannot recommend this enough. For me, this is the greatest tool for a coach that has ever been invented, and I include all of the other Science Untangled apps, which I would also urge you to check out. There is quite a few of them here. General reporting tool, team reports, the same system as this but for attack, and some other things that you can play around with as you will. So that is all I have to say about this app for now. Check it out, have fun working with this and finding the secrets to winning games. Have fun.